Okay, so I am just going to level the playing field and do a quick and dirty overview of what PFAS are, why they're hazardous, and why the outdoor industry finally decided to phase them out. And I guess my credentials for this are I'm a journalist that has been researching and interviewing experts about PFAS specifically used in the outdoor industry, but also beyond in terms of like the contamination and water quality issues it has caused globally. And so I'll preface this by saying I'm not a chemist, so please don't ask me technical questions. But I gathered all this information from the experts for you. Okay, so just a brief overview. PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and it's a class of tens of thousands of different chemicals. So when someone is talking about PFAS, they're not talking about just one thing. They're talking about maybe one type of PFAS, like PFOA or PFOS, which are two legacy types of PFAS that are more commonly found in contamination sites. And they are well known as forever chemicals, like more commonly, people will refer to them as forever chemicals. And that's because they're extremely persistent in nature. And essentially, all of the PFAS that has ever been created since 1934 still exists in the environment somewhere because we're not very good at destroying it yet. But there is a lot of new science that is coming out that is trying to apply new remediation tactics, which is great. The reason that PFAS has become such a hot topic in manufacturing is because it is extremely dangerous. And I don't really say that lightly because it is one of besides the persistence, one of the main issues with PFAS is the bioaccumulation properties. And so say, like if we take the kind of like flagship lawsuit that set this all off in 1999, what they learned from that community in Parkersburg, West Virginia, is that it can bioaccumulate in your body. And that's what then causes the health issues like kidney cancer, hypertension, preeclampsia, birth defects, all of those things. But if you were just to have like a little bit of PFAS only one time during your life, it's less likely that you would be developing a health issue. It's just as exposure increases, your body collects it, and the half-lives of that chemical don't allow you to expel it for 8+ years after you've ingested it. And the map on the screen, that's from the Environmental Working Group. And those are the current known water contamination sites of PFAS in the United States. So like I mentioned, this is a global issue, so there are contamination sites all over the world. The U.S. has some pretty good research, and that map is about to get a lot more dramatic now that the EPA has released the new drinking water standards back in April. So a lot of sites that maybe weren't on there before, they never had to test for PFAS, and now they're testing for it now. Other things, I mean, I don't want to go too much into the actual health effects of it. It is an endocrine disruptor. So if you want to know more about the actual health effects, you can reference the Endocrine Society. Every January, February puts out a report of the effects of household items that have increased hormone disruption in the average population. And they did a really good study on that this year in terms of how PFAS is entering our bloodstream. Drinking water is one, apparel is another. And the persistence of the chemical is also heightened by its ability to move around an environment. And so it can get into the air. So if we're thinking of a pollution plant and where the actual pollution is coming from, it can come from discharge or improper disposal of the waste, but it can also come from the airborne discharge from the smokestacks, and then that will settle into the ground and groundwater. And another primary exposure point is biosolids on fields. So we see this a lot in Maine and Texas, most states, because the EPA allows, our waste at waste treatment plants that becomes a biosolid, but a lot of our waste contains PFAS. And so when it's spread on the fields, it can easily enter our food system and then also enter the water supply because it'll get into the groundwater, run off into streams, etc. So how is it used in the outdoor industry? So we most likely would probably think of it in apparel. That's mostly what the Forever Chemicals podcast does discuss, is the use in apparel, the phase out of apparel, using it for anti-static properties, abrasion resistance, waterproofing, etc. But it's also found in a lot of other product sets. I think ones that people maybe wouldn't think about very often are like ski wax, fishing lines, climbing rope. But of course, anything you could think of that could have a Gore-Tex liner, those would be like the classic, this probably contains PFAS. I know that Gore phased out in 2022 with EPE, but they still use PFAS in a lot of their product sets for W.L. Gore and Associates. So kind of like a red flag, I guess, for seeing if PFAS is in an item. Like apparel would be like if it's completely waterproof or stain resistant are kind of like the trigger words. And then, as you are all probably likely aware, there are a lot of upcoming changes in regulation. So a big push in the industry came this year and last year, primarily because of California AB 1817, which is banning the sale of PFAS-laden textiles in the state. And because the market is so big, of course, brands wanted to shift their chemistry, but there were brands that were doing it beforehand. But when California is changing their legislation in that way, especially with like environmental concerns, a lot of times you'll see then other states will begin to follow suit. And so I think we'll just start to see like more of a trickle effect from that. In terms of regulation, a lot of East Coast states do also have really good regulation. Vermont is one example I share on the screen, but Maine, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, they all have pretty good regulations coming into 2025. And Minnesota has probably one of the strictest regulations, thanks to Tim Walls. Shout out to my man. I'm from Minnesota, so that's why I'm saying that. And they're banning all PFAS in consumer goods. I don't know when it is. Like that. No, that's not all consumer goods. The complete ban is not till like 2038 or something ridiculous, but because it's going to take a long time to phase these items out. But with all of these changes, like state, federal, and then like global regulations, like the Stockholm Convention regulations, I think brands and marketing teams need to be paying attention to those because it will shift a lot of the product production. The end. And if you want more information, more detailed information, of course, listen to the Forever Chemicals podcast.
You should listen to that podcast. It's great. You're welcome. Okay. So I will be chatting specifically about how to talk to consumers, your customers, about PFAS and all of these changes that are happening. So we'll get right into it. I don't feel like I need to give you my bio again. That's already been done. I have written several times about PFAS for my own channel and for other publications like Gear Junkie and that sort of thing. So I've done a lot of research on this as well. And I'm also an outdoorist. So from the consumer side of things, you know, I look and I see as a gear tester and somebody who just loves outdoor gear, what I want to know and what I see my fellow outdoorists looking to understand about this subject. So let's just start with what customers need to know about PFAS and what they or what they should need. You know, they want to know, or they're not sure yet that they need to know. First of all, they want to know if gear contains PFAS. So put it on, like if you have a brand or product page, put it on there. If it contains PFAS or not, if it's PFAS free, that sort of thing. Just put it in text on your page. They need to know that PFAS are harmful and that now a lot of these restrictions are coming into play. That because a lot of their favorite gear, they might start to notice that it changes a bit. People who are extra perceptive, especially if they've been buying the same jacket, every couple of years, they might start noticing that it's just a tad different. So they need to know why these changes are happening. As for how many people understand PFAS, it's a hard number to try to figure out. I haven't found a lot of studies about it, but according to a 2023 study that focused on drinking water, just 31% of people understood what PFAS actually are. And that's likely a bit higher among avid outdoorists who tend to be a little more environmentally conscious and mindful about these things, but it's hard to say, basically. Either way, they're becoming increasingly aware of this terminology as it shows up in the news more and more, and are more concerned about it and want to know whether or not gear contains these chemicals. Another one is there's been a lot of changing terminology over the last couple years regarding these chemicals from, like what we now call PFAS, which is, I believe, the preferred term. But it was PFAS not too long ago, or PFCs, sorry. A lot of times you'll just see generic DWR or something as highly specific and I can't think of the word, but like C0, people put C0. This product was treated with C0 DWR. Nobody knows what that means. So, general, yes, we know what that means, but the general consumer, that's a highly technical term. And as a gear tester and writer and somebody who's in this space, when I first started seeing that pop up, I had to go and research what that was. So it's a good idea to stick with the current terminology, stick with PFAS. And then, Meg talks a little bit about the types of products that do contain PFAS, and I think people are still sort of learning about what those pieces are as well. Like what contains those chemicals, things marketed as waterproof, stain resistant, non-stick, etc. So any time that as a brand or marketer or whatever that you are talking about that you use the term waterproof when you're talking about a jacket or boots or whatever, just go ahead and insert information about whether or not there are PFAS in that. And then, of course, they're going to need to know more about what PFAS-free gear means when it comes to garment care. And I'll let, of course, Heidi talk more about that. But that's going to be a big piece. And finally, that PFAS are complicated. And it's important to help your consumers understand that. I wrote an article for Gear Junkie about... Here, I took a screenshot in the bottom left there, that one piece of the manufacturing process, in the chain, the zippers, YKK zippers, found out that some of their paint contained PFAS. And so everybody who had marketed their rain jackets as PFAS free over the last year or whatever suddenly realized they were not PFAS free, because these things are notoriously difficult to get rid of entirely. And but these are just some examples about how brands are talking about this. So working with journalists and media on articles about what they are and why it's a tricky situation, why they're a challenge to eliminate. Outdoor Research has a whole page about what even are they, which is really helpful. Just educating your consumers. The Patagonia there in the middle bottom, talking about, they list what's in their materials just right there on the product page. And then Houdini bottom right there, talking about their journey with PFAS, what they are, stuff like that. And having pages that explain all of this and dive into the science is a really great way to educate consumers when you're talking about something like this. A little bit about what maybe you should be sharing, explain why you're making this change, that, you probably have to at this point with all the regulation, but also why it's important from a health standpoint, share the science, use precise language when you're talking about it. And that's things like a lot of people are steering away from PFAS free and using specifically something like no intentionally added PFAS or PFAS regulation compliant materials or something like that. Because again, very hard to eliminate completely. And it's okay to talk about it and explain that it's a process that eliminating all this, and even talk about your progress, like when you started, your setbacks. Fjallraven has written whole articles on their website and talked extensively to journalists and things like that about all of the setbacks that they have experienced over the years with this. So it's okay to talk about that, like be transparent and honest about it. And then back to the care portion, consumers and customers need to understand that these new chemistries, they shouldn't be afraid of them. They are still highly effective. They just maybe will need, a little bit more care. And again, Heidi's going to talk more about that. And it's easy. Don't worry. Also, and it's very hard as a marketer, I understand that most of you are probably trying to make money. But explaining that if they already have one of your jackets or boots or whatever, chucking it in a landfill isn't the solution. And buying a new one that's PFAS free. Keeping your gear in play and in good condition is the first best choice. And then when they're ready to upgrade, when that jacket has reached the end of its life, and they've taken care of it, keep this in mind. Now you can get a PFAS free jacket. But until then, just keep it in play. And of course, caring. And one thing that I think every brand that has any sort of stake in the environment, which should be all of us because we're in the outdoor industry, is to have a sustainability page. I know when I go to a new brand or a new to me brand, the first thing I do as a sustainability writer is go see if they have a page just about their sustainability efforts. And if they don't, I bounce, because that's what's most important to me. So even if it's in progress and you're starting small, you're a small brand, and it's just one or two little things, have a page and talk about what you're doing and what you plan to do. And if you have been around for a while, your progress since you started, because customers appreciate that. Just some of the ways brands are talking about it. Fjallraven has lots of articles. Rab has a nutritional label for most of their products now, if not all of them, that shows whether each item contains PFAS. I have an example on the next page. Nick Wax, obviously, working with journalists and creators like myself, actually, to spread the word that PFAS-free gear is easy to take care of. And you're not sacrificing any sort of functionality here. Picture Organic Clothing sharing their history online. Houdini has explainer articles about what PFAS are. And Patagonia actually has just started, from what I have noticed, including photos in their product listings, on the webpage, about caring for gear, which is a great idea. So yeah, some of the examples there, right there in the middle, you'll see Patagonia, and has, what does that say? I can't even read it. Yeah, just a recommendation for cleaning your gear. That's it, but super important. And of course, some other brands here talking about how to fix your tent that's no longer waterproof and things like that. So that's just some cool things that some of those brands are doing, and you could copy if you wanted to.
All right. Is this on? Good? All right. Awesome. Okay. Onward. So you got my intro earlier also, so I'm going to dive right in. On the About Me page, I'm going to talk about Nick Wax for a minute. So I'm with Nick Wax. I've been with the company for over 15 years. I think that says a lot, at least to me, about what a great company it is. If you don't know about Nick Wax, shame on you. No. We make cleaning and waterproofing products for outdoor clothing, footwear, and gear. And we have never used PFAS in any of our products all the way back to 1977 when we were founded. And we make waterproofing products. So we're pretty proud of that, honestly. Around the 1990s, our founder did a little digging into PFAS chemistry. We were calling them fluorocarbons at the time. It's the the progression of the names of PFAS. It was fluorocarbons, it was PFCs, and now it's PFAS, and now it's going to be forever chemicals. So there's just this lovely, you have to keep up with the times. But he did some digging and he found some very concerning studies. And so he decided right then and there that we were never going to use PFAS in any of our products, and we haven't, which is fantastic. So you can do it. You can have waterproofing without PFAS. And so all of our products are really designed to care for those pieces of gear that are out there in the wild and have that DWR coating on them, whether it's a PFAS-based one or a PFAS-free one. The thing about PFAS is they are very, very, very good at what they do. They are amazing at waterproofing. They are amazing at taking care of dirt and oil repellency. They are extremely durable, but they aren't permanent. So they will come off over time. So even before the change to PFAS-free, it was still really a good idea to take care of your gear because it helped it last longer. So that's why we've been in business since 1977. You still needed to care for your gear when it had PFAS on it, and you're going to want to care for it now that we're going PFAS-free. So we're diving in to the C's. I like me some alliteration. So you're going for, as a brand, you want to talk about your commitment to clean chemistry. So you want to be very, very clear with your customers what you're doing and why. Like, we're doing the right thing, be upfront. You're going to be clear with your customers. You want to be open with them. Talk to them about your position. Talk about the change. Set that expectation as early as you can. Don't just provide them something new and different that doesn't work quite the way it used to, and kind of bury your head in the sand and look the other way and be like, it'll be fine. It's no problem here. Be clear. And the last one, which is my favorite, is that care is critical. You are going to need to help your customers understand that caring for their gear is going to give them the best possible experience with these new PFAS-free water repellent finishes. So regular cleaning and waterproofing is going to be a very, very handy tool, kind of in your pocket, to help with your customers' expectations as you are navigating this change. Do you even care? It is easy. This is a great way to talk about it. You don't have to go, okay, so this is like a totally new thing and you're going to have to wash your gear a lot more. Blah, blah, blah. No, just say, hey, it's easy to care for your jacket, your boots, your pack, your tent, etc. It's easy to care for it, and here's how. Got to give them some pointers. And to do that, there's a bunch of different ways that you should be talking to customers about care from the get-go. So don't let them, buy the jacket and then wait a few months and then they call you in customer service and go, hey, what's going on? No, talk about it at the point of sale. Use communications on the garment. Put instructions on the care label so people know what they're supposed to do with your jacket. Like, give your customers results where they're looking for them first, number one. Also, make sure it's on your website. You want to help your customers find that information everywhere you can. So in the FAQs, blog posts, wherever you can, have a good care page. And if you're going to do that, make it as cool as possible. Like, build a compelling resource. Don't just have it buried in like a little FAQ at the bottom of the page. Yeah, you should probably wash it. No, really bring it into your brand. If you are talking about going PFAS free, have some fun with it. Have some fun with care. Outdoor Research has done a really good job with this. I think we alluded to that earlier, with a bunch of different pages that they put together about how to care for your gear, why it's important, in language that customers can understand. You can see there, better performance, extends the life of your gear, reduce your waste, and save some money. All good things. So again, build those resources out. And last but not least, manage the message across your teams. So don't just have it and only have the marketing team know about it and nobody else in your organization knows how to communicate this transition. So be very clear and talk to everyone in your company. Pass the message down to sales. Pass it to customer service and warranty. Talk to your sales reps. Make sure they're on board so they're not out there going, oh, this isn't the same as it used to be, guys. Talk to media. Talk to your pros and your retail staff, anyone that you have with your company. You want to make sure that they are saying the same things. Again, you don't want Jeff selling the product into a retail store, talking about your product in a way that you don't want. So really make sure that you are managing that message all the way across your channels. And that's what I got. Short and sweet. Oh.